Name something that gets passed around.
A joint.
A joint?
Now, streaming live on the Marijuana Agenda.
Oh, really? What are you people? On dope?
It's time for Toker Talk Radio.
Hey, this is great, man.
The voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Marijuana is listed as a Schedule 1 drug. That is absurd.
Call in now at 650-LEGAL-MJ. That's 650-534-2565.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel?
Hey, man. Am I driving okay?
Toker Talk Radio is your chance to make your voice heard in the Marijuana Nation.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
Send that message with clarity that good people don't smoke marijuana.
Now let's get to Toking and Talking with your host, Russ Belville.
All right, welcome back, everybody. And I want to continue on this rant that I've been going on about the Democratic Party missing out on this crucial demographic divide that we're finding when we talk about marijuana laws. And that is, we are getting more than 3 out of 4 Americans who support a states' rights view to marijuana. And the fact that the Democrats aren't using this as an issue to hammer away at Jeff Sessions, hammer away at the Trump administration, and to cleave from them some of their hardcore conservative Republican-type supporters is political malpractice. Here you've got an issue. We got 2 out of 3 Republicans and 56% of very conservative-type Republicans who are on the states' rights side of allowing the states to have their own marijuana laws and to not punish people that are enjoying medical marijuana or recreational marijuana, even if they personally don't agree with it. This is a perfect issue to be able to paint Donald Trump and the Republican Party as being that tyrannical nanny state government that they're always trying to paint Democrats as. The Democrats could actually flip the script on this and make the Republicans the party of invading your privacy, the party of Big Brother surveilling you, the party of meddling in states' affairs when the people don't want it. So I just don't understand, other than, it just being political malpractice and a party led by a couple of very, very old, or a few very, very old people who just don't get the new realities in America. And I wanted to bring this up by pointing out some recent speeches and recent articles that prominently feature Republicans coming out and standing strong with a pro-marijuana stance. And this is not to slight the good Democrats who do come out with a pro-marijuana stance, like my own Representative Earl Blumenauer, like Jared Polis, and the others. But it is to point out that if the Democrats don't get on the stick on this at the seniority level and understand how this issue resonates in America, the Republicans will steal this issue. And in fact, I think the Republicans, and I've said this for a long time, the Republicans are more naturally attuned to the marijuana issue with respect to how it fits their worldview of limited government and individual responsibility and states' rights and all that stuff they preach but rarely practice. So if they finally flip the switch and realize it's a winner for them, it'll be easy to fold marijuana rights into the conservative tent. That's going to be really easy to pull off. So Democrats, I warn you, this is the problem. Let me give you a couple of examples here. Representative Dana Rohrabacher, who I disagree with on so much, politically speaking, but not on this particular issue. He recently spoke on the floor of the House of Representatives. Here's some excerpts from his speech. Quote, "Also, when you talk about Republicans and Democrats working together, we're being told we don't work together. Well, we do. Republicans and Democrats work together just like I did on the tsunami bill. We actually have a good relationship. Many of us do. Nowhere is that more evident than in my leadership of H.R. 975, which is a bill that is entitled Respect State Marijuana Laws. What this bill does is, over the years, in the last 6 years, I have been joined with a Democrat. It is Mr. Blumenauer now, and it used to be Congressman Farr when he was with us. We were able to put into the appropriations bill for the Department of Justice a provision, an amendment to the bill that said, no money in this bill can be used by the Department of Justice to supersede the state laws on medical marijuana in those states that have legalized the use of medical marijuana. So, for the last 5 and 6 years, that has been a totally bipartisan effort. Now, why is it that marijuana is an important issue and it brings Republicans and Democrats together? We have limited resources here. The idea that we're going to spend billions of dollars not on protecting Americans from terrorists, not from trying to get bad guys, rapists, and murderers in our local area. No, we're going to spend billions of dollars on police, on jailers, on lawyers, on judges, and on prisons. And then we're going to take people out of the workforce. We're spending billions of dollars so somebody will not smoke a weed in their backyard. There is no reason for us to prevent our seniors from having some euphoria when they're 85 years old in a senior citizen's home, especially if it brings back their appetite and they feel better because of it rather than drinking. Do they want to have them all drinking? Well, this is not just for seniors. This is for people who have medical problems. It has been documented to have important uses. And again, no one has ever overdosed with marijuana, ever. So there you go. That's a Republican from Orange County, California, one of the most conservative districts you got in America, standing up and proudly and loudly supporting these states' rights to set their own marijuana laws. Let's go to the Senate. Senator Lisa Murkowski, Republican of Alaska. There's recently a story in the Alaska Daily News about this, where they mentioned that the Department of Justice also wants to eliminate the current fiscal year appropriations language prohibiting federal interference with medical marijuana laws. That's referring to the Rohrabacher amendment that we just mentioned, that Rohrabacher just mentioned in that last quote. Senator Murkowski says, quote, "So I am concerned, and I'm speaking for a lot of people in my state who are worried about the inconsistency between the state marijuana laws as well as federal policy." And this is in her discussion with the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein. Now, Senator Murkowski cites the Cole memo written by former Deputy Attorney James Cole in 2013 that essentially states that jurisdictions with legalized marijuana are less threatening to federal priorities if they've implemented, quote, "strong and effective regulatory and enforcement systems to control marijuana growth and distribution," end quote. Senator Murkowski argues Alaska has enacted sorry. The word order there messed me up. She argues Alaska has enacted just such a set of laws. The Cole memo states that the DOJ will not enforce federal marijuana laws against those compliant with strong state regulatory regimes. Murkowski aide Karina Peterson wrote in an email saying, quote, "The Sessions Justice Department has not withdrawn the Cole memorandum, although changes may be possible." The premise of Senator Murkowski's comment to Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein last Tuesday was that the federal government is, on the one hand, supportive of state regulatory regimes, and on the other, standing as an obstacle to the effective administration of those strong state regulatory regimes, end quote. Murkowski believes a legislative response may be required to put the federal government on the same page. Peterson continues, quote, "But that legislative response would come more easily if the administration were working with states like Alaska rather than working against our state," end quote. Murkowski was hoping that the Deputy Attorney General would make a commitment to work with Alaska and others similarly situated to make this all work, saying, quote, or Peterson saying, quote, "Instead, the federal government seems to be moving in the other direction, not helping states like ours clear impediments like access to the banking system or ensuring tax payments can be sent through the mail," end quote. It is also trying to turn the clock back on the established congressional policy prohibiting federal interference with state medical marijuana regimes. The Carers Act, which Senator Murkowski has co-sponsored, establishes a clear policy of federal non-interference with state medical marijuana laws, end quote. And finally, one more, Representative Kaufman from Colorado, who recently penned an op-ed where he says, quote, "It is no secret that I personally did not vote for the ballot initiative in the year 2000 that legalized medical marijuana, nor did I vote for the initiative to legalize recreational marijuana in 2012. My personal views on marijuana have not changed, and if those two questions were on the ballot today, I would still oppose both of these measures. However, the majority of voters in the state of Colorado did vote to approve them, and as one of their elected representatives in Congress, I believe it's my obligation to defend Colorado's right to define its own destiny and to prevent Washington, D.C. from thwarting a decision I believe Coloradans had the legal right to make under the U.S. Constitution. In 2005, the Supreme Court, by a 6-3 vote, held that the Commerce Clause allows Congress to prohibit the personal growth and use of medical marijuana. Justice Clarence Thomas disagreed, writing, quote, "If Congress can regulate this under the Commerce Clause, then it can regulate virtually anything, and the federal government is no longer one of limited and enumerated powers," end quote. Justice Thomas went on to add that the Commerce Clause did not permit commerce to, quote, "exercise police power of the sort reserved to the states in order to eliminate even the intrastate possession and use of marijuana," end quote. Justice Thomas was and is absolutely correct. The federal government can and should only regulate commerce that crosses state lines or interstate commerce. According to the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, quote, "the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people," end quote. Between the Commerce Clause and the 10th Amendment, it is clear to me that the growth, sale, and use of marijuana for medicinal or recreational purposes that occurs solely within a state's boundaries is not commerce among the states because it does not cross state boundaries. Therefore, it should not be regulated by the federal government. While discussions on this topic continue, we must respect the Constitution as well as the right of Coloradans to make their own decisions on matters that are purely within the jurisdiction of the state of Colorado, and I will continue to do everything in my power to ensure that the federal government will respect our state's rights and sovereignty. 3 Republicans standing strong for states' rights to marijuana.
You're listening to the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville.
Hi, I'm Russ Belville from the Marijuana Agenda. Putting together the most comprehensive live weekday marijuana news talk program is a full-time job. Now you can do your part to ensure that listener-supported independent cannabis radio journalism can continue by becoming a patron of the Marijuana Agenda. Just log on to mjagenda.com and click the Become a Patron button. For your $4.20 monthly donation, you'll receive over 20 hours of original first-hour podcasts, plus other materials only available to paid subscribers. Or for just $9.99 a month, become a VIP patron. You'll get over 40 hours of podcasts for the complete program, including Toker Talk Radio, plus ad-free downloads of the segments heard on the Marijuana Agenda. Plus, VIPs get exclusive access to the video replay of the 2-hour live stream show and downloads of the spreadsheets and charts I provide from my years of curating marijuana data sets. Thank you for your support, and remember, I cannot do it without you. Please become a patron today at mjagenda.com. And now, in the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Marijuana Agenda presents this anti-drug public service announcement.
If you have teenagers, I'm asking you to have a very difficult talk with them. Not about sex. For a lot of us, that would be easy compared to drugs. Drugs like cocaine and crack. But you must talk to them about drugs. If you don't talk about it, if you don't fight it, why should they? The idea of your kids using cocaine or crack ought to scare you to death. So please, learn about it and talk about it.
To combat this sort of reefer madness, listen to the Marijuana Agenda every weekday at mjagenda.com.
The Marijuana Agenda. Like the pharmaceutical agenda, without all the side effects, overdose deaths, insurance.
Side effects may include nausea, dry mouth, and constipation. Dry mouth, constipation, indigestion, and abdominal pain,
which can occur without warning and may cause death.
I'm Russ Belville from the Marijuana Agenda. Join me every 4 weeks for the Northwest Cannabis Chronicle from the Marijuana Business Association. Learn more at mjagenda.com/about.
Hello, Mr. Man. Hi. I'm working. I'm sorry. No food till this is done. It's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation. Call in now at 650-LEGAL-MJ.
Welcome back, everybody. Glad to have you here. And in this segment, I want to talk a little bit about the new UNODC, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. Their global drug report is out, and we'll do a bit more on this tomorrow in drug war data mining. I have just perused, just kind of glossed over this report a little bit. Haven't perused it yet. But I've glossed over it a little bit. I thought I'd share some of the data with you because it's kind of interesting stuff. First of all, there's a note in this that global seizures of cannabis dropped by 2% as far as cannabis herb goes, but rose 6% when it comes to cannabis resin. And this is data from 2015. Understand they collect the data. It takes a while to, put it all together. So the 2017 report, the latest data is as of 2015. But 5,781 tons of cannabis herb were seized in the cannabis market last year, and 1,536 tons of cannabis resin were seized in 2015. The global number of cannabis users in the entire planet here, we've got 183 million of us that smoke cannabis. So that's some of the preliminary data. Also, we've got the other graphs in here I wanted to come up to. We've got this indicators of the distribution of eradication of cannabis by region for the first half of the 2010s. So 2010 through 2015. And what we find is that the Americas, so you're counting North and South America, are the main cannabis producers, at least as far as eradication goes. The Americas part of the graph are in green. So you'll see the big green bars in that particular graph indicating how much is sized. And hectares of cannabis, 52% of all the cannabis eradicated out of the 18,000 per year that were eradicated, over half were eradicated in the Americas. Cannabis plants themselves, counting the number of plants, and again, we're talking an average of 27 million plants a year. 27 million plants a year there. 35% came from the Americas, 35% came from Africa. Pretty even split. Cannabis plants seized, not eradicated, but seized, 2/3 almost, 65% from the Americas, 2,955 tons per year. And grow sites eradicated, almost all of them eradicated in the Americas, 96%. So interesting graphs that we're getting here from this UNODC drugs report. Global quantities of cannabis resin and herb seized from 1998 to 2015 show it's gone up and down a little bit since 2001, but still within kind of a narrow band of between 6,500 tons and 8,000 tons. Also, we see United States leading in seizures of cannabis herb, Mexico coming up second, and then the rest of the countries listed, very low, below 500 tons being seized, over 1,500 tons in America, almost 17 and a half, 1,750, I'd say. But when it comes to cannabis resin, the United States isn't even making the list. Not even making the top 10 here. Spain with over 250 tons seized of cannabis resin. Pakistan coming up next. Morocco. Now that you'd expect Morocco. We all have always known of hash production in Morocco. Then as we continue on down, the quantities of cannabis herb seized by region. Again, we see how North America is dominating this. Now they've broken it down between North America and South America. But since 2011, we're seeing a growth in the seizures in South America, Caribbean, and Central America, and a decline since 2009 in cannabis herb seized in North America. You suppose that since 2010, we've been changing these laws and there are fewer illegal farms of cannabis to be seized in North America? That could have something to do with it. Cannabis resin, again, we're seizing most of that in Western and Central Europe. Estimated number of cannabis users number of cannabis users in the millions, staying steady since about 2011. again, at around 180 million users since 2011. Now, that number grew since 1998.
Oh, gnarly!
But it's remained steady since legalization has taken hold, so that's interesting to note. We'll get deeper into these world drug numbers on tomorrow's show in Drug War Data Mining, but right now, time for us to take a safety briefing, and I'm feeling pretty safe today. I hope you are. We'll be right back, and when we return, we're going to talk about bathrooms. A lot of people in the chat room talking about it. I thought I'd weigh in. We'll be right back.
At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville.
And now, another episode of Cannabis Shakespearean Theatre. I'm your host, Leonard Pinth-Garnell III. Tonight we revel in the hilarity of acquiring cannabis when miscommunication occurs between the cannabis delivery service and the consumer. The Royal Shakespearean Cannabis Theatre Company presents the classic David's Not Present piece, made famous by Richard Marin and Thomas Chong. Enjoy.
Hark! Who goes there?
It is I, David. Pray grant me immediate passage, good sir. I come bearing a package of great import.
Hark! Who goes there?
It is I, David, as I previously informed you. Make haste in unlatching this portal, for I believe the constable hath cast his visage upon me. I bring you the package you seek.
'Tis David?
Affirmative, my good man. 'Tis David. Now open this door forthwith.
David's not present.
For Cannabis Shakespearean Theatre, I'm Leonard Pinth-Garnell III.
You're listening to the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville.
I'm Russ Belville from the Marijuana Agenda. Join me every 4 weeks for Shark Sessions from The Marijuana Show. Learn more at mjagenda.com/about.
Tjena, jag heter David, p.k.a. Dirtball. Vi ska röka hela tiden, alla år.
It's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation. Call in now at 650-LEGAL-MJ.
It's good to know that should I ever travel to Sweden, I'll know how to say legalize it in Swedish. That's really cool. Thanks, Dirtball, for that one. Quick note coming from the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, a new study out that says, and I'm sure you'll all be shocked by this, adult use marijuana laws do not adversely impact traffic fatality rates. That's right. The enactment of statewide laws regulating the adult use and sale of cannabis is not associated with subsequent changes in traffic fatality rates, according to analysis of traffic safety data published today in the American Journal of Public Health. Investigators from the University of Texas, Austin evaluated crash fatality rates in Colorado and Washington pre- and post-legalization. They compared these rates to those of 8 control states that had not enacted any significant changes in their marijuana laws. Authors concluded, quote, "We found no significant association between recreational marijuana legalization in Washington and Colorado and subsequent changes in motor vehicle fatality rates in the first 3 years after recreational marijuana legalization," end quote. Authors also reported no association between adult use marijuana legalization and the total number of non-fatal crashes. So this is a critical study for us to get the word out about compared to the other study that I reported in hour 1 from the insurance people that said, oh my God, they legalized in Colorado, Oregon, and Washington, and they had more crash reports. The problem with that study is they're control subjects. They're comparing Washington, Colorado, and Oregon to the states that are around them. Well, what's the state right next to Washington and Oregon? Idaho. And then what's the states around Colorado? Wyoming and Utah and Montana, right? And maybe Nevada in there, right? So if you're going to compare those, that's a complete apples to oranges comparison. We are talking about states that have more cows and empty spaces compared to states that have more cities and people. If we're talking about car crash claims coming in, sure, there's going to be more car crash claims coming in places like Denver, Portland, Seattle. And these car crash claims, we're not necessarily talking people totaling their vehicles. We're talking people that make a claim to the insurance company. So these can be fender benders as well. So saying that there's more fender benders in Washington, Oregon, and Colorado compared to Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana, no shit. What are you going to hit in Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana? And again, the total number of non-fatal crashes, these UT Austin researchers have discovered no significant differences in this data. The full text of the study is crash fatality rates after recreational marijuana legalization in Washington and Colorado. It's online in the American Journal of Public Health. All right, so let me get to something that a lot of folks in the chat room have been talking about. And we haven't actually covered this story yet on the show, but I now saw it in the Marijuana Moment newsletter, and it's made a Toronto news site. So now I got to bring it up, and it has to do with the Prince of Pot in Canada, Mark Emery. And what prompts the story is a news item coming out of Toronto about a spa, okay? So it's this spa that's a women's only spa, and it's bathing suit optional. So you can go in and be naked, right? And this spa has a no naked penises policy. And the story involved a transgender woman who is complaining this is discriminatory because she can't go and be naked in the spa because of the no naked penises policy. She's not transitioned. She's not had a gender reassignment surgery. So this led to some social media debate wherein Mark Emery chimed in with a comment, and I don't have the comment in front of me. I'll paraphrase as close as I can. It was something to the effect of, women don't have a penis, period. No woman has a penis, period. Something like that. Something to that effect. And so to me, now this has exploded on the cannabis news scene and in LGBT news scene as, oh my God, here's this, leader in the cannabis movement who's transphobic. He's got these anti-trans views. He said such a terrible thing. So I want to tackle this in two parts. The first part would be what Mark tweeted, which he's already retracted. He's already apologized for. What he tweeted was ignorant and kind of offensive in the sense that the parts between your legs don't determine who and what you are. Okay. Gender's up here in the brain, and transgender is a real thing. I have plenty of transgender folks that I know. I was an accredited blogger at the 2008 DNC convention for an LGBT blog, along with a transgender blogger there. So, I've discussed these things. I've talked with people and tried to get a better understanding of the issue. So gender and sex are two different things. Your biological and chromosomal sex are something different from what's in your brain. And I totally support that. Totally all for transgender rights and so forth. What Mark said was ignorant and offensive, and I think he's recognized that. And I know the guy, he's not a hateful person. He's a person who believes in tolerance and inclusion. So with that aside, let me tackle the number two side of this, because I think there's a more nuanced discussion that needs to happen here than what's happening in the social media about this, and that is about gender-based discrimination in general. First of all, I think there's a nuance here between if the spa says nobody with a penis can come in versus nobody can show a naked penis. I think there's a slight difference there. I think the first would be, yes, absolutely transphobic. Laverne Cox is more of a woman than a third of the women I know. Okay? Laverne Cox is as feminine and beautiful and female as could be. And a wonderful person as far as I can tell, seeing her on TV and such. So if you said, Laverne Cox, you can't come in to this spa at all because you have a penis. And again, I don't know if Laverne Cox does. Pardon me for using her. I think that's just a quick association a lot of people will know. Janet Mock. Okay. Anyway, if you said, no, Laverne Cox, you can't come in at all, that's absolutely transphobic. But the second thing, if you say no naked penises can be displayed, that doesn't stop her from coming in. Remember, this place is a bathing suit optional place. So I would think she could come in with a bathing suit or wearing even just the bottom of bikini. And this place would be hard pressed to not let her in. You know, remember, this place is billing itself as female only women, right? So as long as they're trans inclusive, it's like, yeah, you can come in, you just can't show your penis. Is that transphobic? I think it probably still is, but it's a little less so. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to talk about. I think there's some nuance here in this discussion that we could bring into this. But these are discussions that are going to be, over the next few years, are going to be interesting discussions to have. The actual definitions and why we gender segregate. Like, on one example, we've had these bathroom talks, bathroom bills in North Carolina and such. I've always found it vexing as to why we have separate bathrooms anyway. I say, like, open all the bathrooms to everybody, put stalls in all of them, treat everyone equally. I've never understood why women don't file a class action discrimination lawsuit to make all bathrooms unisex. Like, every concert you go to, every sporting event you go to, the men's stalls, man, boom, 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 you're in, you're out, right? Women's freaking a line. Unless you're at an outdoor festival where there are porta potties that anyone can use, there's not female porta potties, male porta potties, they're all just porta potties, then everybody's getting in and out of the restroom at the same time. Men and women are waiting in those lines. Why do women put up with a building where in that room only women can go in to pee, but in that room only men can go in to pee? I've never understood why that's not gender-based discrimination that's leading to separate and unequal public accommodations for women. Then again, I'm an outlier because I don't have a big thing about genitalia. Like, you can see my junk, I can see your junk. I don't give two shits about it, right? Generally speaking. But I do understand from discussions that a lot of people have these issues and worry about who's looking at their junk and what's going on. So the bathroom issue is one side of this. You got to worry about, like, why do we gender segregate in bathrooms when bathrooms have stalls and you can pee and poo in that stall if you like? Well, what it usually comes down to is we're worried about the women getting assaulted in the bathroom because they're helpless. And if the men could go in the bathroom, they'd assault the women. It's never the other way around. Nobody's worried about the trans man going into the men's room. It's always that the trans woman is a guy in a dress who's going to go in and assault people, despite the fact that doesn't happen. We don't see any evidence of that happening. But that seems to be what it boils down to, is people worried that, men are going to be rapey, assaulty guys. So wouldn't the solution be better to try to make it so men weren't rapey, assaulty guys instead of instituting a gender-based discrimination that results in separate and unequal facilities for women? And also, if your worry is that someone's going to, the fake transgender woman is going to corner the helpless woman in the bathroom and assault her, wouldn't the chances of those two people being alone in the bathroom be cut in half if both genders could enter that room on a random basis? Anyway, that's one aspect. That's one side of this conversation. The other side of the conversation has to do with athletics. We gender segregate in athletics. And there's a story out of Alaska about a transgender girl who is competing against the other girls in state track meets and stuff. She's in track and field and shattering all of the existing Alaska state records and blowing away her competition. Like, nobody's even in the same frame when they take the finish line picture. Because As a transgender girl, she's born with a male body that has male musculature and a male skeleton and more fast twitch muscle fibers and ability. I mean, is that fair? Yes, we want to be inclusive. We want to include transgender people in all areas, but is it fair to the cisgender girls who have worked to be the best possible athletes they can be, only to be permanently consigned to silver medals and second place trophies if a transgender girl wants to compete against them? Is that fair? Is that right? I don't know that it is. I remember growing up watching the Olympics back in the day, right? When we still had the Soviet Union, right? And I remember there being controversies that involved the East German, back when we had in East Germany, had the East German women's swim team that were all loaded up on steroids, and some of them were not exactly XX chromosome women, and it led to all sorts of definitions in sport as to who is a woman for the purposes of Olympic competition. And these East German swimming, they were just blowing away the rest of the women, right? So at what point does inclusion and wanting to be tolerant and bringing people in run up against the sheer reality that men and women's bodies are different? They're just different. There's a reason why Usain Bolt can run 100 meters in 9.59 seconds, and the fastest woman that can do it is 10.49. There's a reason why in nearly every sport, the men are better at it. You can say what you like about the WNBA, but not one of those teams is going to even hold the Philadelphia 76ers to within 50 points in the game. So, and I know we go back to Billie Jean King, Bobby Riggs, but Billie Jean King was a pro at the top of her game versus a washed up old has-been who was never a superstar, right? You put Rafael Nadal out there against Serena Williams, and I think he's going to win. So there is a difference. And so if we are going to gender segregate our sports, is it fair to have transgender people crossing that line to compete on the other side? I think that it's an easy argument to say that a transgender man should be able to play in track and field or whatever, because he'd be automatically at another disadvantage against the cisgender men. This also goes back, and I got a lot of heat for this when I had this discussion back when Oscar Pistorius, before he was a murderer, the Blade Runner, that guy, the double amputee, was able to put on these carbon fiber springs, leaf springs basically, onto his legs and compete in the Olympics. Now, against able-bodied runners. Now, he's competing at a disadvantage, having only these artificial limbs to run on for now, right? The technology is there now where this guy with artificial legs can't run as fast as people with natural legs, but it won't be that way for long. Robotics and bionics are going to move forward in leaps and bounds. So at what level does the double amputee become limited in what prosthetics he's allowed to wear? Does this become like NASCAR, where they have specific levels of how much torque and how much this can and that can be involved? I mean, these are going to be the questions of the future. Transgenderism, biomechanical people. How does that segregation work in this future world? I think it's fascinating as hell. And I think people need to get past jumping to label people. Oh, you're a hater, you're phobic, or whatever. Let's jump past that and maybe understand that there's some nuance here, and there are some legitimate questions that need to be answered, and we can't answer them if we're not able to have a reasonable discussion with each other. Be right back.
You're listening to the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville.
Hi, I'm Russ Belville from the Marijuana Agenda. Putting together the most comprehensive live weekday marijuana news talk program is a full-time job. Now you can do your part to ensure that listener-supported independent cannabis radio journalism can continue by becoming a patron of the Marijuana Agenda. Just log on to mjagenda.com and click the Become a Patron button. If you're an organization or business looking to promote your brand, we have sponsorship patronage available at mjagenda.com. Sponsorship includes 15 and 30-second ad breaks and 6-minute interviews on the podcast, depending on sponsorship level, which begins at $19.99 a month. Thank you for your support, and remember, I cannot do it without you. Please become a patron today at mjagenda.com.
Hey, this is Willie Nelson for Normal. And I smoke pot and I like it a lot. I learned a long time ago that marijuana is a lot safer than alcohol. There's nothing wrong with the responsible use of marijuana by adults. It's time we stopped arresting and started respecting those who smoke marijuana responsibly. To learn what you can do to help, contact NORML at NORML.org or call toll-free 888-67-NORMAL.
The marijuana agenda. Like the gay agenda, only with better music.
I'm Russ Belville from the Marijuana Agenda. Join me every 4 weeks for the Freedom Leaf Preview with Steve Bloom from Freedom Leaf Magazine. Learn more at mjagenda.com/about.
I have a package here for Radical Rick. Is there a Radical Rick here? How about a Rick Russ? Any Rick Russ? Somebody named Freddie Barack has sent him a package. Anybody? What is that? Sounds like a skunk. It's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation. Call in now at 650-LEGAL-MJ.
It's not a skunk. That's Durban poison. Welcome back, everyone. So, going to stay off the warpath a little bit, but there is a marijuana relation in this next topic. It has to do with the Republicans who have, the Senate Republicans, who finally have released their Trump Care bill. And it's awful. It's as awful as you'd expect it to be. Basically, the idea here is we need to kick more older, poor, and disabled people off their health care so that rich people and healthcare corporations can get a tax break. Let that roll around in your brain pan for a second. We're going to kill sick, poor, and old people so rich people can get a tax break. Sorry, Republicans, you have now forfeit any right to ever call yourselves Christian. That is as anti-Christ as I can possibly imagine. That is like Bizarro Christ. That's like Superman. You remember Bizarro World? It's Bizarro Christ. Not even Antichrist. It's Bizarro. You forfeit all right to ever bring that up ever again if you vote for this healthcare bill. Now, with that said, I've got my problems with Obamacare. My main problem with Obamacare is a philosophical one, and it's one that was brought up in the dissent in some of these Supreme Court cases, which is we can't extend to the federal government the ability for it to punish us, to coerce us to purchase a private product from a private company for its profit. That's my problem with Obamacare, is that if you don't go and buy private health insurance from some for-profit corporation, you get a tax penalty. You have to pay a fine on your taxes. And I've had to pay this fine every time. Ever since Obamacare has become the law, I've had to pay this fine because I'm a freelance guy. I'm not a paycheck guy. I don't have some company healthcare plan to join on. Trying to have your own healthcare plan when you're a single member LLC is damn near impossible. But I make a little too much money to be able to get the Oregon Health Plan. Oh, lighter. That's a cool effect with the lighter there. Just looking at that. Let's magic lighter. Very cool. Sorry for the podcast listeners. I'm playing with the green screen. But I've had to pay this penalty every time. I've been I've been penalized for not purchasing a private product from a for-profit corporation. And I'm just philosophically opposed to that. Now, I understand why it's there. You have to have the healthy people paying into the system in order for the sick people to be covered. That's the very definition of insurance. The low risk helps subsidize the high risk. I'm for that. But that's what our taxes are for. That already comes out of my money. I'm already paying that when I pay my self-employment taxes, when I pay all the taxes and fees that we end up paying in this country. Now, I understand it's one of those, politics is the art of the possible. We can't possibly get public option health care. It's impossible. We'll never have it. So we had to compromise and go with Mitt Romney's idea from Massachusetts, where we force people to buy private health insurance so that everybody can be covered. And I'm sorry, I just find that offensive and un-American. What we should do is what Americans really want, what Bernie Sanders championed, what people understand, a Medicare for all, a basic level of health care coverage that your taxes pay for. And I'm tired of hearing, well, we've got a Ted Cruz and we've got a Rand Paul and they're sold out, the healthcare corporations. There's no way we can get it. It's impossible. I don't buy it. I think if someone stood up strong and went for it, finally, I know Hillary Clinton failed at it. I know that Barack Obama failed at it. But I think we are at a point now where people understand that we need public health care for the same reason we need public fire departments. The not burning down of the neighborhood is good for everybody. The not getting sick in the neighborhood is good for everybody. I think we're starting to understand that. And I think if the Democrats would finally there was a tweet that came across my desk today. It so crystallized it. And it was, I'll never understand why Democrats think they can do a better job convincing people that don't agree with them than mobilizing the people that do. That's the big failure of the Democrats, is this idea that, well, we need to go out there and educate and teach people what they need, and that this would be a good policy because the stats and the figures are behind us. And you look at this chart. And that's why they've lost 1,000 state house elections and most of the governorships and the House and the Congress and the Supreme Court. How the hell did Donald Trump win? Not by trying to appeal to the majority of people who think he's a bloviating sociopathic narcissist. No, by mobilizing the 40% who want to make America great again. It's time for Democrats to recognize, hey, you got a strong base of people that actually make up the majority on damn near every issue. Everything but the death penalty. But you ask people about unionization, minimum wage, public health care, free college tuition, abortion rights. I mean, you ask them about anything, and the majority is on the Democrats' side, at least what they purport to be for. Hell, even on gun issues, the majority is on the Democrats' side, wanting universal background checks, wanting a close of the gun show loophole, wanting to make sure that the no-fly list applies to not getting a gun. The Democrats have the majority on all this stuff, and they squandered away by, instead of being strong Democrats with a well-energized base, they keep reaching out to the center and the middle, trying to convince them, or to the right, to the Republicans, to maybe we can compromise and work together here in the middle. And the only reason I can possibly imagine that justifies this is because they believe they can't win without getting that money that's over there on the right side of the aisle. And I don't buy that either, because our whole marijuana movement has been founded by billionaires, funded by billionaires, very liberal, progressive guys. They're out there. There's the Mark Cubans and the Sir Richard Bransons and, George Soros, tons of them. Hell, Democrats are sitting around right now, wandering in the wilderness, trying to understand why their brand. I heard one of them in a story today, our brand is toxic, who can't figure out why their brand is toxic. Meanwhile, a poll comes out asking who's the most popular, who's the politician loved by the most people, and it's Bernie Sanders. And Bernie is like, only the Democrats could see somebody standing up for their ideals, filling stadiums, people waiting in 2, 3, 4 hour lines to see them. Only Democrats could look at that and say, yeah, we don't want any of that energy. We'd rather have again, they went with Hillary, and you can say it's because of corruption and stuff, but also I think there's an element of it that's like, well, no, she's just the logical pick. Why? She's been in government for so long, and she has all these qualifications, and she was a Secretary of State, blah, blah, blah. They, again, went back to we have the data, we have the chart. According to our chart, she's so qualified, whatever. Only the Democrats could have run a campaign that would lose to Donald Trump. And I like the point that Bill Maher made the other day on his show, where he made the analogy to the Titanic, where the Titanic in the movie, they talk about the Titanic had 9 hulls or 9 compartments in the hull. And if 4 of those compartments flooded, they'd be okay. They'd still be able to float. But if 5 compartments flooded, that was too much, and they were gone for. And that was kind of what the Hillary Clinton campaign dealt with. Yes, the compartment was flooded as far as she was an idiot not to campaign in the Rust Belt states. Yes, there was a compartment that was flooded because she was an idiot by choosing to go with a private server and stoking that whole fiasco non-issue. And yes, she's known to have high personal negatives. Yes, there's this part, right? Benghazi, whatever, right? So there's 4 compartments already flooded. And then you get the Republicans suborning hacking by the Russians to help embarrass and delegitimize the Democratic operation, right? So yeah, they messed up by not picking Bernie. They messed up by not competing here. Yeah. I still think she could have won if not for that damn hacking and the Comey coming out on October 31st. And anyway, I don't want to rehash that whole election. The main point of this discussion is that here the Republicans are actually proposing a health care bill that literally kills Americans. And we have pictures now, the pictures coming out through my Twitter feed showing protesters, disabled protesters who filled the halls around Mitch McConnell's office being led off in zip tie handcuffs in their wheelchairs by Capitol Police. We are literally handcuffing handicapped people who are protesting a bill that will kill them. That's where we've come to. If the Democrats can't take this imagery and this issue of healthcare and destroy the Republicans with it in the 2018 midterms, we're screwed. There's no hope. And in my rant, I talked about how the Democrats could jump on the states' rights part with medical marijuana, jump up and be more strongly marijuana. Another issue where they're mealy-mouthed about it. And people, what was it that Jesus was alleged to have said? Be thou cold, be thou warm, but don't be lukewarm. Something like that. I'll spit you out, right? That's what's going on. The Democrats' failure over the past, since Reagan, has been the failure of not being Democrats. The failure of not living up to what it is they actually believe. The failure of over-compromising, of giving in too easy, of not staking out a strong position on the left in opposition to the position on the right and sticking with it, even if you lose. The Mondale election, 84, was a massive landslide loss for the Democrats. And so what did they do? They moved right. They went with Tip O'Neill, and they went in hard on the war on drugs and tough on crime rhetoric. And it was doubled down on by Bill Clinton, tough on crime, war on drugs, trying to be more Republican than the Republicans on the issue. And they got a short-term gain in 2 terms of Bill Clinton, sure. They got some short-term gain in 2 terms of Barack Obama, sure. But over the long term, they've moved that party to the center and to the right so far that they can no longer energize a base. And that was their downfall in the 2016 election. You couldn't convince Bernie supporters, some of them, that it was important to support Hillary because she was so far to the right. To Bernie supporters, she was indistinguishable from the Trump side. Now, that's a huge lack of perspective, especially now seeing what Trump's up to, but still, it's an understandable perspective. Totally understandable. Democrats, you want to win some elections, move left. Move left hard. Stand for something. The younger people coming up are on your side with this, and it will build a long-term permanent majority and a hugely energized base. But you gotta stand strong for it, not be mealy-mouthed.
You're listening to the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville.
The Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association and the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details.
And now, another episode of Cannabis Shakespearean Theatre. I'm your host, Leonard Pinth-Garnell III. Tonight we take a look at one of the finest works in the cannabis cinema, 1996's Half-Baked, starring David Chappelle, as interpreted by the Royal Shakespearean Cannabis Theatre Company. In this scene, Chappelle's character, Thurgood Marshall, has just admitted his addiction to cannabis to a room full of narcotics addicts. One addict, played in the film by Robert Saget and interpreted here by the Royal Company's Sir Frederick Farrach, takes umbrage at the suggestion.
I find preposterous the notion that you, sir, may be addicted to cannabis. In times previous, I have undertaken lubricious endeavours, most revolting and unbecoming of a proper gentleman, in my servitude to the wicked powder of the coca leaf. Lo, that is an addiction whose chains would bind Hercules. At any point in history, could one identify a moment in your life so sullied by your ignominy as a cannabis slave? Methinks not! Boo this man!
For Cannabis Shakespearean Theatre, I'm Leonard Pinth-Garnell III.
You're listening to the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville.
I'm Russ Belville from the Marijuana Agenda. Join me for A Sensible Future from Students for Sensible Drug Policy every other Tuesday here on the Marijuana Agenda. Learn more at mjagenda.com/about.
Most of us pirates, we go on vacation to North Dakota, you know, because they've got a town called Argusville. What are you smoking there, boy? It's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation. Call in now at 650-LEGAL-MJ.
All right, we've got an update for you on an interview we provided earlier on the show. Not today, but when he was on the show. We had Tim Blake on the show a few episodes back promoting the Cannabis Country Fair at the Black Oak Ranch in Laytonville, California on July 23rd through 27th. Well, just an hour ago, I received in my email this announcement. Due to a short production time frame, promotional hurdles, and challenging situations for our cannabis farmers, we have unfortunately decided to cancel this year's inaugural Cannabis Country Fair. Refunds will immediately be issued at the point of purchase. This was a difficult decision for our team to make. We realize that our industry is going through rapid changes that are impacting every aspect of our lives. We strive to create the best on-site experience for our festival patrons to unite the cannabis community in a safe, inspiring, and beautiful space. Providing this unique event experience is very important to us. We are excited to move forward with this year's Emerald Cup, taking place December 9th and 10th in Sonoma, California. We want to thank you for your continued support and look forward to celebrating with you at this year's Emerald Cup. Tim Blake, founder and producer of the Emerald Cup. So that's disappointing because this is the one they were going to have where they're going to have the terpene based competition. And it's a shame that's not going to happen. But my best to Tim Blake and everybody out there at the Emerald Cup. Good luck for everything that is happening in December. Also, there was another type of cannabis competition I'd heard about, the Growers Cup. Was that Growers Cup or Growers? I can't remember the exact name of it, but this was one where everybody was going to get a clone, a seedling of the same plant off the same mother plant. And then they'd grow it for the cycle and enter the results. So they're literally competing apples against apples here. I think that's a fascinating way to run these competitions, too. Well, that sound means we're out of time. Time flies when you legalize. For everyone here at Delta 9 Studios, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
Follow MJ Agenda on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, and follow MJ Agenda Show on Twitter. Learn more at mjagenda.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.